If you color graded in Adobe Premiere prior to the CC 2015 version, you likely spent some time using a number of color effects like fast color corrector and three-way color corrector, among others. When Lumetri Color was introduced, Adobe declared a number of these effects obsolete and moved them to an effects folder of that name to try to steer users toward using Lumetri. So you might ask yourself, if these effects are obsolete, why are we talking about them? Well, there are two good reasons for this. First, if you're working collaboratively, you may come across a project that still uses these filters, either because the editor you're working with is more comfortable with them or has yet to learn the Lumetri tools. Or maybe even the project was created prior to Premiere CC 2015. Second, some of these effects have tools that are not included in Lumetri, so you may want to call on them from time to time. So basically, even though Adobe has banished these effects to the obsolete folder, I'd like to show you which ones really shouldn't be used and which ones you might have a use for. The first thing that's different about these effects compared with Lumetri is that they're modified from the Effect Controls panel. So for the purpose of demonstration, I've added the Effect Controls panel to my interface and also moved the Effects panel so it's visible to the right. For this tutorial, we won't need Lumetri, so I'm going to close the Lumetri panel by right-clicking on it and selecting Close Panels. Let's locate the obsolete effects by opening Video Effects and Obsolete. To start with, here are a number of effects we can just ignore because they are either included in Lumetri or in one of the obsolete effects I'm about to show you. The effects I would suggest ignoring are Auto Color, Auto Contrast, Auto Levels, Luma Corrector, Luma Curve, RGB Color Corrector, RGB Curves, Shadow Highlight, and Video Limiter Legacy. That leaves us with the Fast Color Corrector and the three-way color corrector. Let's take a look at the Fast Color Corrector first. There's really only one control that is unique to this filter over Lumetri and other filters, and that's the Global Color Control. You can adjust the hue by dragging from the center and the intensity or how much that hue you're adding by dragging on this line here. And that's pretty much it. But if you're looking for a global color control, this is the place where you'll find it. So the other filter that I find a lot more useful is a three-way color corrector. I'll add that to the next clip. And let's start with the exposure controls. The three-way color corrector uses a level style effect which users of design and photography software will be more familiar with. Using the input levels, I'll adjust the image for contrast. I'll pull the shadow slider to the right to bring the shadows down near 0 IRE. Then I'll pull the highlight slider to the left until the highlights are near 100 IRE. Then I'll increase the midtones by pulling the middle slider to the right, and then adjust my shadows by pulling the shadow slider further to the right. The highlights went up a little too far, so I can either drag the highlight control for the input levels to the right, or the highlight slider for the output levels to the left. Now let's look at color. These color wheels will look similar to the color wheels in Lumetri, but they work quite a bit differently. The highlights control only adds color to the very brightest highlights and has minimal effect on the rest of the image. The same goes for the shadows control. While this might seem frustrating at first, you could use this to your advantage if you're going for a stylized look or trying to fix a particularly problematic clip. For this clip, I'll use all three controls to give the shot a warm look with cool shadows. Like the global control in the fast color corrector, you can drag the puck in the middle to set the hue, and then drag the bar in the middle out to increase the intensity of the hue. Next, let's adjust the saturation. I'll open the saturation controls. Maybe the most useful part of this filter is the fact that you can adjust the saturation of the three main tonal ranges individually. This is something that you can do in Lumetri with the Lumiverse saturation curve, but it may be much faster to selectively adjust saturation with this filter. I'll increase the master saturation a bit, and then reduce the saturation in the shadows by dragging to the left on that value. Okay, as for other controls, the secondary color correction section does the same thing as the HSL secondary key in Lumetri, but with controls that I think that are harder to work with, so we'll just ignore that section. Auto levels will set exposure levels if you have pure white, black, and gray in your image, but the results can be very mixed, so I'd stay away from this section. Same goes for the auto contrast control, which often gives you results like this. The sections for shadows, midtones, and highlights just gives you a different way to manipulate the color wheels by dragging the values as opposed to the color wheel pucks and sliders. The master control is similar to the global control in the fast color corrector, but without the color wheel interface. One last feature of the three-way color corrector is the split screen view, where you can see a before and after of your correction by clicking the show split view and adjusting the layout. You can then adjust the wipe by dragging on the split view % control. So now you can see that some of these effects really are obsolete, but others may give you controls that you may prefer over the Lumetri color panel. As always, I would just recommend using whatever tools or combination of tools that gives you the fastest and best results for your project.